Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come my brother, come my sister, and let us build a nation together.
Come, my brother, come, my sister, and let us build a nation together. A nation that we all can be proud of. And a nation that our children and children will be living in, that's way better, more improved, more developed than what we inherited. We have a duty to our children and children to make it better for them. I want to welcome you to the hub. Again, we have a unique opportunity to talk using radio and social media to connect. I want to encourage those on Facebook and YouTube to please share the live. Sharing is caring. I want to start off in terms of the conversation for tonight by saying good things are happening in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. And I would start off with two good things that you need to hear about, or maybe three, or maybe four. So let's start off with the Moliniere project.
For pavement of the Moliniere Road is progressing along with final construction work on the trains as the contractors move towards a November handover of the project to the Ministry of Infrastructure. Details in this report by Sherry-Ann Noel.
With the 140-meter bridge now complete on the Moliniere land slippage project, the engineering firm and contractors are now prioritizing work on the carriageway to ensure it is completed and open to vehicular traffic in November. On Wednesday, the GIS spoke with Joshua Akwan of Beston Consulting Limited, engineer consultant for the Moliniere land slippage project. Mr. Akwan said overall he is pleased with the progress of the construction work in realizing the handover date for the project.
It's well underway, and based on progress on site, we should be completed with all the sub-layers of the road by the end of next week, weather permitting, of course. So at this current stage, once we completed with the roadworks in that regard, we working with a local supplier to provide the asphalt for the project, and we had good conversations with them within the last couple of weeks. So we should get a job mix for the asphalt, which we will as the engineer will review and approve accordingly. What we would have done some investigative works, and depending on the subbase that was existing, we would have replaced it, subbase and base layer, to come up to the level of the finished road level. And we, based on the investigations and replacement of those layers, we should be fine to accept those loads.
And in terms of your curb walls and your sleeper drains and so status on that?
All the drainage on the site is complete. And as it stands, those will be the references for the level of the road, the finished road level.
Construction and Industrial Equipment Limited project manager Sunil Pal also spoke to the scope of work presently being carried out to ensure the November deadline is realized. He also addressed the matter of stagnant water, which he says is temporary.
This is a method where we have to dig down and replace the base with the new material. So this is just a process of few hours. This is not a lengthy process. However, if you walk through the project, mostly 90% area is easily accessible. People can walk, and we're taking care of their safety. Like right now, I have guys waiting to deal with this. Just because we have this program, they're just waiting. So in next 30 minutes, this will be properly prepared for people to pass.
And in terms of access to various driveways and so what's the process, the progress status on that?
We fix a couple of the entrance already based on the guideline of ministry and our consultant Beston, which you could look at the next entrance immediately. And also we already make provision with some swell train for them to cross. And after ministry is working on to identify which all access has been affected and how we have to work on it. Based on today's, we focusing on the main carriageway, and immediately after we will get the list of entrance and how we have to fix it, and we'll take care of them. We have some cascade drain which is going towards the sea. Apart from that, we don't have any structural work balance. We started the base work. If you look at the surface, this is the layer before the asphalt. So right now we only balance to do some major activity, which is asphalt paving.
The width of the road, Joshua says, varies, with the widest being the newly constructed bridge.
So there will be an asphalt layer. So we're going to create what you call a screed layer, which will give it a grade for drainage, and asphalt will be laid or placed on top of that screed layer.
The width is what?
7.2 meters on the structure. We didn't have much room to alter the width of the road outside of the structure. So we had to work with basically what was existing, but the structure itself, the road width is wider than everywhere else on the road. Yes, we'll have 2 3-meter lanes with a 0.6 of a meter shoulder on either end.
Aquan also spoke to safety measures that will be implemented with regard to the upper embankment, the bottom slope, along with safety rails on the lookover from the bridge.
So basically, we have a plan to place a geomat, which will have an organic element that will encourage the growth of vegetation and also help to stabilize both upper and lower slope. But we would have prioritized the road opening. So when the road is complete and open to traffic, we will work on those things. It should have no hindrance to road traffic. On the seaside, there's a barrier wall on the structure where would eventually be the observation deck. We're going to put a metal guardrail just for safety, so persons not at risk of falling off the edge. And on the barrier wall alongside the road edge, we have at intervals some pedestals to place lighting towers, lighting poles.
Aquan says the bridge is constructed in a manner that allows for a gap between the structure and the upper slope. Hence, there will not be a direct vibration on the slope from moving vehicles. For GIS News, I am Sherry and Noel.
Yes. So that's a very good piece there, a very good update, a very good piece. So they will be stabilizing the upper slopes with, that mesh. It's like something similar to what was done in the Concord area where the stone fell on the bus, Greenleaf. Greenleaf, I think that's the name of the bus. That was the name of the bus. So a similar thing will be done at the upper and lower slope. All right. And the loose soil and so on you're seeing below, it's really the soil that was where the bridge is now. Because remember, they did not pay to drag that topsoil away and dump it wherever. What they did was to just dump it over that same precipice or over that same area where the slide occurred. So it saved government millions of dollars. All right. So you would see over time that would slide further down into the sea. But it's really loose soil, it's topsoil. It is nothing to be concerned about. The road is on, proper piles, so it's well grounded. The foundation is intact. So again, it's a good project, and we're happy to see that it's coming on nicely. And by November, things should be, copacetic, so to speak. Things should be proper, ready for vehicular traffic. I love that.
Given to extending the completion deadline for the Fort George rehabilitation project to April 2025. That's according to project manager Francis Robertson, who spoke with the GIS on Wednesday. We have another report by Sherry and Noel.
Rehabilitation of Fort George, referred to as an infrastructural development of Fort George, a component of the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project, is part of plans to transform the site into one of Grenada's main tourism attraction spots. A large percentage of the stonework is already completed along the perimeter of the fort, with other infrastructural work ongoing. But some outside factors mean that consideration has to be given to extending the completion deadline. Project manager Francis Robertson spoke with the Government Information Service on Wednesday.
Based on efforts now to relocate the police from Fort George to the Carenage, then that April deadline would, new completion date, would be more realized after the move has been done by the RGPF from Fort George. So that in a cap, it's where we are at the moment.
Robertson says the contractual agreement is a fixed one, and as such, it should not see any significant increases on the government's purse. He says, however, there are certain variations that may have to be considered when the project is completed.
There are some variations which are under consideration now, which would more or less be decided after the work is finished, because you would appreciate that rehabilitation of assets such as Fort George, there are things that would be unseen or unplanned. You might be restoring a wall, and the assumption or the belief was that the wall was structurally sound, and then you start to do what rehabilitation work was considered necessary, only to realize that there are things below the surface that only become visible as you start doing the work. So those things will be captured under variation, which we have to agree on that final figure after all the work is complete.
The project had an initial completion date of August 2023. However, due to certain constraints, an extension had to be sought.
The infrastructural development of Fort George should have come to a close by the middle of June of this year, based on the contract that was signed. Last year into early this year, an amendment of the contract was done so as to push the completion date forward in terms of extending the time to complete it by November of this year. We are at the moment considering an extension to April of next year as the final date for completion, and that is linked to what I mentioned earlier on in terms of the RGPF having to relocate from Fort George. So at the moment, on average, the works is about 55% complete, but that need to be explained because there are some parts of the work that are about 99% complete. Some are 0% because they have not started. So that 55% is an average when you consider all the subcomponents of that.
Mr. Francis gave a breakdown as to the progress of the various components of the project.
Preliminary works, that is referring to the preparation of the site and so on, that is 100%. That has been totally done. In terms of the fortification walls, sometimes referred to as the fortress walls, those are 99% complete. In terms of the galleries, those are about 78% complete. In terms of buildings, around 28%. Now there are two types of buildings, new buildings and rehabilitated buildings, right? So on average, when you consider the new buildings and rehabilitated buildings, average about 28%, but bear in mind that some would be greater than 28%, some less than 28%. As regards urbanization, that is about 12% urbanization, speaking to pavement, how you access the fort from the bottom level to the top level, in terms of the walkways, the ramparts, and so on. Illumination, that is 0% because that is the activity, one of the last activity that would happen. Has to do with lighting both in and around the fort. As regards ancillary means, which is linked to the work that was done on the fortification walls, those are about 97%. And waste management, which has to do with the demolition waste, is about 97%.
Once the RGPF is relocated to its new headquarters at the former Cable and Wireless building on the Carenage that is nearing completion, Francis says there will be an increase in construction activities on the project. For the GIS News, I am Sherry-Ann Noel.
Yes, so that's a good update there. A very good update from Sherry-Ann Noel on this particular project. And she spoke about the police headquarters, and the gentleman, Mr. Robinson, spoke about the police headquarters because they're waiting for that to be completed so that the police can move from the police headquarters there at Fort George so that they can start some of the other works on that project. And I played a piece for you regarding the new police headquarters.
Force headquarters and other departments will soon be housed at its new location, the former Cable and Wireless building on the Carnage. The government of Grenada made a significant investment in purchasing and retrofitting the building to accommodate the law enforcement officials. Details in this report by Sherry-Ann Noel.
Work on the Cable and Wireless building on the Carenage, purchased by the government of Grenada for the relocation of the RGPF headquarters and other divisions, is nearing completion. The refurbishing and retrofitting work were contracted out to Ricky Edwards and Dwight John of D&N Detailed Finishing. The building was purchased to facilitate the move by the RGPF from its Fort George headquarters so that work can be done there under the Tourism Competitive Enhancement Project. On Tuesday, the GIS visited the project site at the former Cable and Wireless building and spoke with one of the contractors, Dwight John, who stated that he is now down to the final stages of his contractual agreement. Mr. John's contract entailed the retrofitting of the lower floors of the building and a section of the upper floor, including the roof.
We're basically 90% completed, or maybe I'll say 95% completed. It's just minor touch-up works and stuff, but basically 95% completed on my side of what I have to do.
And what is it you had to do?
Well, I had to basically refurbish the entire interior of the building. First, starting with dealing with the roof, and then from the roof we went on to do the sheetrock and do the drop ceiling and a few other things, and then everything else fell into place after in terms of construction and the minor painting and stuff like that.
The initial handover date was June of 2024. However, the unavailability of material created a challenge for him to meet the deadline.
Yeah, in construction you always have challenges, and basically some of the unforeseen things that was basically out of our control, we had to deal with it, and maybe had little setbacks in time and when the project would have been delivered, but we kind of worked through it and got everything done.
Clearly, you were going to hand over in June, but you're basically around 4 months past date. What would have contributed to that?
Well, a lot of things out of our control in terms of material locating materials, sourcing materials from the various hardwares based on the quantity we needed. We couldn't get everything from the same places, so we were just a little setback. And then Hurricane Beryl came, so that just added to the extension of the time and when we could have really got certain materials to complete the work. So that was some of the reasons.
As you mentioned, you are one of 2 contractors here on this particular project. When will you hand over your side of things?
I'm looking to hand over everything by weekend, Friday the 1st, actually.
What are the minor little things you left to do?
Minor little things for me is just touch up paint works, installing a few doors and door handles and stuff like that. Just few minor things, nothing much.
Nathaniel John, supervisor on the project, spoke to work entailed in the construction of the new roof, which had to be completely replaced due to termite infestation.
This particular side was the most challenging part because we had to fabricate metal plates to bolt the truss and them together for the distance that we was working with. And there was it took a while. The fabrication of the plates took a lot. There's a lot of bolts and thread rods that had to cut and put in. They also had to incorporate the truss in them with drains that it was already existing on the roof. So we had to do all of that. It was tedious, but we succeeded.
So when you say you had to fabricate the plates, what are the reasons for using the fabricated plates?
The plates was because of the distance. You have over almost 40 feet in distance. The truss wouldn't be able to sustain the weight without the plates. Like the different parts of the truss, bolt them together. We had to use the plates and thread rods and bolt them together so that they wouldn't droop or they wouldn't drop. They'll be able to sustain the pressure for the weight. So it basically holding itself up.
And is that part of the plan to ensure that the roofing is hurricane resistant?
Part of making sure we're hurricane resistant and strong.
There were also some challenges with the painting of the exterior walls as a result of fungus being discovered, and as such, Dwight John says thorough cleaning of the walls had to take place first, hence the slight delays in that aspect of the job. Contractor Ricky Edwards is also reporting steady progress and his intention to hand over by weekend as well. For the GIS News, I am Sharian Noel.
Yes, that again is a very nice piece there with the police headquarters. Very good update because people were waiting on that. And that is why this morning I commended the director of GIS. I think he's doing a fantastic job in updating the public on so many things, so many major projects and so on. And he must be commended.
It's going to be applicable to 3,000 plus persons who do not have a pension. So if they leave the service now, whether it's on retirement age or whether they've worked for 10 or 15 years, they get nothing. So what the government is seeking to do is to give them a pension. And the government is contributing 3%, and we are asking them to contribute 3%. So that 3% is them. The only issue is that we are simply saying, as opposed to spending all of it, no, we are incentivizing you to save 3% of it, and we are matching an additional 3%. And to be clear, for all of the years that you've been working that you do not currently have a pension plan for, so that if you were leaving tomorrow, you will get nothing when you walk out. We are actually paying a past service contribution on the commencement of the pension plan. As in, we are going to fund a certain percentage to recognize the fact that you've already worked for whatever period of time with no payments going towards your pension. So I want to emphasize this. This is game, because currently you have nothing. If you leave now, you get nothing. If you work until you retire, you get nothing. And we're saying that, you see the numbers, we're not talking 5 people here, we're talking 3,600 plus persons who currently face this situation. And so we also have to talk about sustainability. The PS provided the background as to where Greener found itself and why it was forced to go to structural adjustment and take all of the painful policies it had to take because the management of the government's finances was not being done prudently. And so we cannot go back to a system where the pension is completely funded by the government, i.e. taxpayers, with no contribution from the employees. Such a plan would simply not be sustainable. And if we did it 5-10 years from now, we'd be right back where we currently are. Because the situation we're in has arisen by the fact that essentially we had an unsustainable human resource finance management policy in place, which saw 70% of our money going towards wages and salaries, and the rest going towards financing debt. I still want to repeat the call made by PS. Very early, the department wrote to the Trade Unions Council, inviting them to take part in this process. They have never done so. Notwithstanding that, we will continue to engage with them, whether it's individually or collectively, if they want to do so. The consultant has been on island repeatedly throughout this process, and there's been several engagements, and we have no difficulty in addressing her. The PS didn't say this, but I'm going to say it. The Public Workers Union went to the lawyers who wrote the government. We've since responded to that letter. And even in that letter, although what was contained in the letter was hogwash, we have still indicated to them we are ready to meet and we propose a date of 30th October. But I want to make it clear, we are committed to doing this. We are committed to making sure that we do not leave the current generation of workers who do not have a pension to find themselves 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now retiring with no pension in place. It will not be good for them. They will retire into poverty, as many people have been doing over the last several years. It is still going to be the government and taxpayers they will be running to for some kind of social safety net or social protection. And so we are committed to ensuring this happens. And I'll make the final point. This pension is not impacting the 4,000 plus public servants who currently fall under the existing pension scheme for pensions when they retire. So we have to appreciate the kind of burden the government is undertaking by seeking to keep in place the existing pension for established public servants and at the same time create another pension for another 3,600 plus and counting persons. That is what we are seeking to do and we are committed to. And we will hope that those who say they champion the rights of working class and working people will in fact take part in the process to help shape the outcome, which is by any yardstick an improvement on the current circumstances that the 3,600 plus workers find themselves in.
Yeah, and look, I fully agree with our beloved Prime Minister, because as it stands now, you have 3,672 contract workers or unestablished workers. You know, workers on contract for service, or, you know, a worker with a letter from PSC, but they're not appointed or confirmed. And when they retire, they're going home with no pension from the government of Grenada because they're on contract. They were not employed permanently. They were not employed with a particular post as an appointment and then confirmed. That did not happen. So they were retiring, or they are retiring without a pension. But those who are permanent, those who are confirmed, they're going home with a pension from the employer, the government of Grenada. But remember, the majority of workers who are on contract were hired by the NNP administration on contract, knowingly so. They know that these people retiring with no pension, no gratuity, no nothing. And then the burden falls directly back on the state because they're going to end up on the seed program, or they will end up on some social safety net program to help them to get by after working for years with government. The NDC administration, recognizing that, say no, we cannot continue where workers work for 20 years, work for 25 years, work for 18 years, and they go home with nothing because they're on contract. And they're doing, in many instances, work that a permanent employee should be doing. So they are needed within the service. So our beloved Prime Minister decided they're going to set up a pension plan for them. So we're going to regularize them, but first you must set up a pension plan to take care of the pension for these workers. The regularization would be under a new instrument because you don't want them to fall under the 1958 laws, or else the government alone will be paying into that pension when they retire. And that's not sustainable. So they're asked to contribute 3% of their salary, and the government will contribute 3% of, they would match it. The government will match that 3%. So when they retire, they will go home with a pension. But here it is. Those who started working 15 years ago on contract and still in the service, the government will pay that 3% or so for them as though they were in that pension scheme or plan 15 years ago. So the government will come and pay that back, that kind of back benefits, the kind of back end, they're going to pay for that for them. So it's like they just enter the public service, do on contract, whatever pension to collect. So if they retire in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, they would not lose the 15 years that they were in the service. That is a caring government. That is what the government is seeking to do, to help these workers. But some of those union leaders, they're against that. They are against it. Some of those within the NNP, they're against that because they want to see these workers remain in poverty. They want to see them retire and go home with no pension. That is what they want to see. Instead of coming on board and being happy for these workers, the unions, they stayed away from being a part of the engagement, the consultations, the meetings, the planning, the preparing for this day. And they decide to remain outside of this, and they go on all kind of programs and talk and say all manner of stuff. But when it comes to actually making sure the workers are taken care of and protected, because at the end of the day, when they retire with nothing. They go home with nothing. These union leaders, they have a pension to get when they retire. Not the contract workers, contract for service workers, or those on some PSC letter who were not appointed and not confirmed. So I am saying this is a good thing. So the government wants to put a stop to these workers working for all these years and going home with no pension. But what they're saying is the government alone cannot pay that pension for them. They need to contribute something to it. And this thing is simple, you know. This is not rocket science. But you have the NNP who want to make it rocket science, and some of those union leaders with a political agenda, with their own agenda, they want to make this thing as though make it to be something difficult. It's not. It is not. So I'm happy that our beloved Prime Minister is serious about this. And you see, you cannot allow those elements to prevent you from doing what you're supposed to do. Just do it. Like Nike, just do it. So our Prime Minister spoke at the Youth Talk, embracing our connection with Africa.
Africa, and it is the diaspora. It is the black people in the Caribbean who started the fight for the liberation of Africa. It is Marcus Garvey. So I want you to read about Marcus Garvey. Born in Jamaica. And as early as the 1910s, he was able to say Africa for Africans. He was able to say we need to ensure that black people are not ashamed of themselves. If you go to Africa, you will see it has the richest, deepest, most ancient culture, and it's the cradle of civilization. And you go there so that you could actually be proud of who you are, and be proud that God chose to make us in His image and likeness. So the trip, even though it was only for 48 hours, was very good because I got the opportunity to understand the profound, deep culture of Africa, and then second, to emphasize that as black people, we need to start taking our business, our economy, our assets, our education, our culture, our religion a lot more seriously. If we don't do that, we will continue being the poorest people on the planet. We will continue being laughed at, we will continue being taken advantage of. So the whole point of going was to ensure that we begin to explore deeper political, diplomatic, economic, social, travel, tourism, agriculture relations with the land and the continent of our forefathers.
That's our beloved Prime Minister there speaking about the trip and how important it is to connect with the motherland. And you know those NNP goons, zygotes, and sycophants, they have a problem with that. And I like how he explained the benefits that come with those travels.
Deacon Mitchell says contrary to statements made in the public sphere as it relates to his travels, one must appreciate that he is the chair of CARICOM, Grenada is a member of the OECS, United Nations, and the fact that we are an independent state warrants his travels to negotiate benefits for the state. Prime Minister Mitchell made the statement in response to a question posed to him by host of GBN's Good Morning Grenada program, Gordon Joseph, on Tuesday, alleging that travels abroad by him and his cabinet colleagues are not beneficial to the country.
When you're a state, you have international and regional obligations legally binding that you have to commit to. And you have to represent your country. That's one. Two, the government's policy, save for those international and regional organizations and groups that we are part of. And therefore, we must take part and support the activities, the conferences, the issues we need to discuss, most of which are there to support Grenada and to help us economically, socially, and otherwise. Let's say CARICOM, for example. I'm the chairman of CARICOM, which means I need to travel on CARICOM business. Do we see what's going on in Cuba? Do we see what's going on in Haiti? Do we not understand that there's something called diplomacy? And that you need to be able to lobby to help our brothers and sisters in Haiti, help our brothers and sisters in Cuba. That requires you to be there in person. Do we not see that when we had the Guyana, Venezuela challenge, that we had to travel to St. Vincent to help our brothers within the region ensure that things didn't escalate? That's our job. That's why you travel.
Given the fact that Grenada is one of the small island developing states with a population of just over 100,000, Prime Minister Mitchell says it is important to attend various conferences and meetings in the interest of securing foreign direct investment for the country.
I want our citizens to understand that we're a dot. Don't get no ideas that somehow the big people think you matter. They don't think we matter. And if you are not there to fight and advocate and bring attention to your country, you can easily and you will get left behind. So as the Prime Minister of the country, it is my job to be the chief advocate for the beautiful tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And the only way to do that is to leverage me and the office of the Prime Minister to ensure that we can get investors, we can get people interested and talking about Grenada. So with all due respect to the Grenada Tourism Authority and all the advertising, I am the biggest seller of Grenada. So when I go to Nigeria, I'm representing Grenada. Nigerians who never heard of Grenada would have heard of me as the Prime Minister. They would have recognized that I met with perhaps one of the most, if not the most influential person, not just in Nigeria, in Africa, in the Black world. And the attention that has brought to Grenada is what you will see following therefrom.
Government, he says, is all about doing the work and creating the avenues for support for various projects and programs that will ultimately drive economic benefits in the country.
I started together with members of the community, a little cricket academy that we have in Laura, which we started in the summer, and we continue every Saturday. The children, the primary school children, primary school, boys and girls, from St. Dominic's, from Corinth, from St. Teresa's, come down to Laura to learn how to play hardball cricket, real cricket, with 2 coaches. They get refreshments. They get cricket kits. We get a bus and hire, pick them up and bring them there. In speaking to Mr. Dangote and in explaining what we're doing, he doesn't know anything about cricket. They don't play cricket in Nigeria. He's agreed. He then and there called the owners of an Indian Premier League team, who incidentally also owns a team in the CPL and a team in the Bangladesh League, and said, I want 1,000 cricket kits for these kids. they are being manufactured. They would be delivered to Grenada. That is why we travel. We are launching between now and December a cybersecurity course where the government will pay 7,500 Canadian dollars to train at least 100 Grenadians in cybersecurity. That's 20,000 EC a pop. Do you know how that came about? That came about from me traveling to Canada in February to mark our 50th anniversary of independence at a diaspora event in Canada, where the Minister for International Development from Canada attended and met with me. And we started talking about how can we partner. And that partnership led to me being introduced to a black female entrepreneur who has a cybersecurity business that can provide that training. But not just provide the training, has guaranteed us that when they complete the training and they are certified, they will find employment for these young people, where the starting salaries are 2,000 and 3,000 Canadian dollars a month. You know what the minimum wage in Grenada is? It's $1,200, give or take.
Prime Minister Mitchell says the aforementioned are fundamental reasons why his administration travels to engage in meaningful dialogue that subsequently brings foreign direct investment into the country.
Yes, and Innocent, you did a wonderful, wonderful interview there. And Innocent is my very good friend, and he is the cousin of our beloved Prime Minister, right? Some family connection. And I see Innocent from time to time. He's a very nice gentleman, very, very nice gentleman. And kudos to you, my brother. Kudos to you. That interview was a really good one. And I think you can do more of that with the other ministers of government and what they're doing throughout. Take a bow. That was a wonderful, wonderful interview. And you're a good gentleman, a decent gentleman indeed. So again, folks, we know that the NNP is jealous. When Keith Mitchell was prime minister, he never got that kind of reception, that kind of respect, that kind of embrace. He never had that kind of connection. But you're seeing today that our beloved prime minister, he's connected to people right up to the top, not just presidents or prime ministers, but billionaires in the field of, business, entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. Mr. Dangote is one of the richest men in Africa, the continent of Africa. And for our prime minister to be with this gentleman in terms of visit, in terms of, being able to visit the plants, engage, that is what you want. That is exactly what you want. All right? So there's a level of jealousy. Even the business people here in Grenada, they have embraced our beloved Prime Minister in such a way that they have never embraced Keith Mitchell and his administration. Never. And that is what's causing the jealousy and the bitterness. Because you have people like Naguib Sawiris. I mean, he came in under this former administration and so on. But look at how, he embraced this new team of men and women and our prime minister. But remember, our prime minister was not new to this. His law firm represented a lot of these businesses and investors and so on. So it was not hard to continue a relationship and expand on it. That is what you need. A leader who people can look up to and who they would respect. Because if I am your lawyer before I enter government and I did a good job representing your interests as a client, now that I'm prime minister, well, our relationship will be even tighter. And that is exactly what we are seeing, because this government is pro-business, pro-worker, and pro-business. That is why the same Naguib Sawiris took over that project, the Kiwana Bay Resort project. He's the developer on that project, right? He's going to turn this thing into something really good. And I love that. You saw he opened a new project. They completed a new project down Point Celine area, the beach house and so on. So they continue to invest. You look at the project in St. David, Six Senses. The investor there again, embracing our beloved Prime Minister. Because remember, the NNP used to always say, well, NDC is this and NDC is that when it comes to investors and when it comes to... But look at the embrace. They can't say that anymore. They can't. Because the investors are more interested in doing business with this administration than the NNP administration. So I'm saying, folks, we have to look at those things and appreciate it. We have a gem in this Prime Minister. This is what Grenada wanted all the many years. And I love that. When last you heard about some convestor that came into Grenada? When last and did some bubble or make some bubble with government or mess up government and run away with millions and millions of dollars? When last? Under the NDC administration, zero. Not once. Not once. But under the NNP, every Monday morning, some conman, some fraudster, some crook pop in and run away with millions and millions of dollars. It's a different type of governance, the level of due diligence and so on. Even with the CBI program, the level of due diligence. Look at the amount of passports and citizenship that we were able to sell or get under that program. Just check it out. Other countries cannot even get that. Because why? Grenada is a paradise. And we're doing the thing right. So the NNP, they're jealous. They're jealous. And they will continue to be jealous. That would not change. Because the Prime Minister is doing a fantastic job. A wonderful job. And Grenadians home and abroad are very happy with his performance and the government's performance. And I could feel the pulse of the people here. When I traverse, throughout Grenada, people know me very well. I'm a household name. All right? And they know where I stand. They know I support this government. They know I support the NDC. They know I support our beloved Prime Minister. And I want to see him succeed. And I want to see the party succeed. And I want to see the team succeed. They know that. That's well established. And you can get it from the people when you go on the ground. Sometimes I would be answering, yes, 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 left, right, and center. Everybody calling, hey, Kem Jones, Kem Jones, Kem Jones, Kem Jones, Kem Jones. I want to talk to you, I want to do this, just like that, throughout, everywhere I go. It says something. It says that people still appreciate this government. They love the government. They love what the government is doing. And they want the government to succeed. Or else it will be a different feeling, reaction, and everything like that on the ground. So different vibes, right? So we have to be happy. We have to be proud of what we have been able to achieve over the last 2 years and a half. The NNP become so desperate that they vex about the 50th independence celebration in St. David. The NNP, And not just vex, they jealous. They angry that our beloved Prime Minister and the team around him, so far, they put on a real good independence celebration for the 50th for St. David. A wonderful job they did so far. So some asking, well, when is St. Andrew on? When is this one on? When is that one on? How we not seeing this and how we not seeing that? Jealous. Jealous, they jealous. Because you see, when our Prime Minister does something, he does it well. And the team of people around him, they know to put down something proper, something good. So the jealousy showing out and now evident. You hear them talking about it openly, the NNP. They vex. They vex, they angry. Because when Keith Mitchell was there, look at his constituency now. Look at Keith Mitchell's constituency. Sometimes I feel sorry for the people there. Look at the constituency. The guy has not done anything major in his constituency, Just left the thing to just fall apart. Fall apart. But again, he's not leaving there. He's in St. Mark, right? But folks, we have to remain focused. It is important to do so because you have about 7, 8 opposition programs, radio, social media. They're on TV now. And all they're doing is spreading lies, condemning, criticizing, bad talking, just being negative about everything and anything. That's what they do. They don't want Grenada to be transformed. They don't want Grenada to develop because they believe if Grenada develops, if Grenada transform and people standard of living and everything like that improve, then they would not get to come back. They would never get a chance to come back. So they want to see Grenada on its knees. They want bad things to happen to Grenada so they can easily waltz their way back into power, which is dangerous. Because who wants a bad vehicle, for example, right? A vehicle that's breaking down. Who wants a old house unkept? Who wants that? Who wants something that's badly damaged? Who wants that? You want something good. You want something good for Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. And that is what we need to work towards and strive towards. Something better, something greater. And our beloved Prime Minister and his team, they're doing a fantastic job. They're genuine about Grenada. They want good for Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. But folks, I want to say lastly, this program is funded by people just like you. And while it is a good thing to hear you say, well, Kim, I love the program. Kim, keep it up. I'm praying for you. And all those nice stuff. That's all good. Thank you for doing so. But at the end of the month, we have to pay the bills. All right? We have to pay the bills. So in Grande Tang, for example, where our transmitter and everything is, we have to pay every month $500 for internet. We have to pay every month $500 and something for electricity. We have to pay every month $500 for rent at Grande Tang. That's $1,550 already. That's just in Grande Tang alone. Right? Much less in terms of the operation here in the studio. We have to do a similar thing here. So on a monthly basis, we require between $7,000 or $8,000 to keep the operation going. And look, there are some people who every month they give what they can, the little that they can. Some months they cannot give, they would indicate so. But in the last 3, 4, 5 months, a lot of people have been indicating that, they may have a funeral, they may have some family that they helping, right, to rebuild their home. They may have something pop up, health issues, other concerns. And you have to understand those things. They do happen. So what we need you to do is to fill in the gap. There are people who are listening to the program religiously who can afford to give something small towards the program to keep it going. There were people who used to give, but things do pop up. All right? So I want to encourage you. So while you listen, while you view, while you follow, it is also good if you can give something towards the program to keep it going, to keep it on air, to keep things flowing. Because I bet you, if tomorrow you tune in and you want to hear me, you'll be concerned. The night you won't hear me, you'll be concerned. The next day, the next day, the next day, and then you say, well, what's going on? But sometimes it's because, well, we can't meet this, we can't meet that, we can't. You understand the point? So it's important. Yes, it's all good to pray. It's all good to be, nothing wrong with that. But this program is sponsored by you. You keep this program on air. So I want to encourage you to give financially to the program. Before time, we used to do a pledge and wait for people to call in and all that kind of stuff, right? We have been doing that for the last 10 years or more. I stopped doing that. If you're out there, you listen to the program, I don't need to do any GoFundMe page, my dear. All right? No, I don't need to do that. Sorry, Kendra. I don't need to do that. If you're out there and you're able to give to the program, you can. There's a Zelle number that I can provide to you, so you can Zelle towards this to keep you in the program on air. We're not new to this. I've been out here doing this for the last 10 years and months. This is not new. There are good times, there are bad times. All right? There are times when people can afford, there are times when people can't. Good? So again, so I can give you a Zelle number if you WhatsApp me or you communicate, because my WhatsApp number is scrolling under the program, 1473-415-4817. That's 1473-415-4817. You can WhatsApp me and I can provide you with that Zelle number and the name. You can Zelle the money. Or you can send it via MoneyGram or Western Union. There's apps, MoneyGram app, Western Union app, or you can go in person to do that. All right? So again, you WhatsApp me and I can provide that to you. Good? I am certain that some people already know the Zelle number. All right? But if you WhatsApp me, I can provide you with it. Good? So I want to encourage you. If you're interested, you want to give to the program, you want to support the program, you can. And the little that you give goes a long way. We do not do ads. I could do ads. I could take ads on this program, and then it would disrupt the flow of the program. And whoever pays the piper calls the tune. All right? Whoever pays the piper calls the tune. Remember that. So the minute time you start doing ads and some people don't like what you're saying on the program, then they call and they say, well, stop saying that, or else we will pull the ad from you and then you're off air. So I'm not going the direction of ads. Right? So again, it's so important that you understand. So you can send your contributions via Western Union or MoneyGram. I normally would provide you with the name, the address, and all the information. Once you WhatsApp me, you message me, you call me, I provide that to you. The Zelle number, I can do the same thing. All right? So if you want a Zelle, you can Zelle to this name, Zelle. Yeah, Zelle to Glenroy as a name, Glenroy Betel. All right, and the number. So you can actually Zelle to this number. All right. Yes, you can actually Zelle to this number. And I shared that before. So you can actually Zelle to this number. That's the number you can Zelle to. And just let me know, and we take it from there. All right. So that's the number you can Zelle to. But you can send the money via MoneyGram or Western Union. The little that you have, you can, right? If you can't afford, then so be it. But it's important that you support the program financially. There were some people who were able to give in the past, but they're doing other things, and things do pop up and different commitments and so on. And that's what it is. All right? Because people are voluntarily giving or donating to keep the program going, because they understand how important it is to have such a program running. So I want to encourage you. All right? I want to encourage you to do so. I would not do the pledge where I wait for you to call and pledge and so. No. If you realize the need to pledge and you can give something,